Former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley wants Democrats to cancel the pity party over President Donald Trump and face the future. He's here this morning to talk about 2018, maybe 2020 and beyond. Governor O'Malley, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm good to be with you.
So in your speech to the New England Council, you talked about this erosion of trust that's gone on in this country. How does a theoretical candidate, perhaps on the Democratic side, restore this trust and at the same time satisfy this ravenous need on the Democratic base to sort of take the fight to President Trump in the way that he has been fighting against Democrats?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. You know, I traveled last year to 20 different states on behalf of 36 candidates, usually running in special elections for State House and State Senate. And one of the very interesting things that they have told me is that they learned never to bring up Donald Trump. The people are sick of talking about Donald Trump. They're sick of the 24/7 coverage of Donald Trump. And I mean, I know that he has to be covered. I mean, he's the President of the United States. But I think what the public's looking for from our candidates is someone that's going to listen to them, be on their side, understand that their anxieties around the kitchen table about their kids' future are very real. So our candidates are bringing the message back to the message of us rather than the message of Donald Trump. He's almost like, you might think of him as the dark backdrop against which their brighter picture of the future can be painted. And they're not promising to make the whole world a perfect place. But people do believe that they can make their own state better. And there's a yearning out there, I think, among the voters to restore some American equilibrium, decency, and goodness in our public discourse.
As you're looking at these special elections that you've gone around to these almost 24 states that you've visited, is this people are being drawn out by the president, or is it the Democrats who are pulling them out here? And on top of that, do you see the Democrats taking back Congress?
Yeah, it's Donald Trump, say what we will about him, has been probably one of the most effective recruitment tools the Democratic Party's had in a long time for recruiting really good people up and down the ballot, not just for Congress, but for State House, State Senate, even town council races. The other thing that his presidency has done is really energized our base and crystallized the opinions of, you know, the future of America, that is young people under 25. I don't think you'll ever see them sit on the sidelines waiting for the perfect presidential candidate again. But the motivating factor, I believe, for our candidates, who we're seeing a swing of about 15 to 20 points better than anybody might have thought. And you've seen that here in New Hampshire. Kerry Lerner's race, Kevin Kavanaugh's race. Really, the message is an economic message. It is a kitchen table message. I mean, I believe that we do have a chance at winning back the House. I believe we have a chance of winning back the Senate. But what we have to not lose sight of as a party, which happened to us in 2010, is that states matter. The states drive energy policy. States determine largely whether you're making college more affordable or more expensive. States drive a lot of health care policy, and for all of these reasons, our states are important, and we can't really save the United States unless we can win back more of our states.
Sorry to keep this on Washington, but if Democrats do regain legislative power on Capitol Hill, what should they do first?
Look, the first thing has to be about the economy, making investments in the skills of our people and the infrastructure of our country. No people ever made their children winners in a changing economy by making their country weaker or by providing their workers with a lower level of training and skills. The world's changing rapidly. We're stumbling backwards into the third industrial revolution. We should be winning it, but instead we're clinging to the past, almost more fearful of the future than we are hopeful about capturing that change and harnessing it for greater opportunities for ourselves and our kids.
You tried very hard in 2015 and 16 to make the conversation in the Democratic primary one about guns. Your record on this fits in pretty well with where things are going right now. But then you have somebody like former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens come out and say, repeal the Second Amendment. Is that where this debate is eventually headed for Democrats?
I'm not sure exactly. You know, the justice is free to have his own opinions. In my own state, we found a way to put together the consensus. It wasn't easy, but we put together the consensus to pass a bill that actually went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said this does no violation to the Second Amendment, and it is in fact legal to ban the sale of combat assault weapons, that's what we did. It is, in fact, legal to require training and also licensing in order to purchase a gun, and it is legal to ban the sale of magazines with more than 10 rounds. So we did all of those things, Adam, and we did not take away a single hunter's hunting privileges by doing it. And in fact, rather than vilifying hunters or people with hunting traditions, we said, look, this bill is about combat assault weapons, and we need you to maintain your hunting traditions. But look, I think all of us agree that the loss of life and young lives in our country, in school settings and other settings, is appalling. No other developed nation on the planet allows its would-be mass murderers to be so heavily armed, so readily and so easily in our country, and we have to do better. And I think our young people will motivate us to do better. And the March on for Our Lives down in Washington, I was there with my son, and there's a lot of decency, a lot of goodness, a lot of responsibility being voiced by those kids, and I think they'll shame the adults into more loving action.
Do you think those teens, they're in the arena, so to speak?
Yeah.
Are they immune from criticism?
No, apparently not. But they seem to be well equipped to punch back. I think you're going to see. In the wake of Donald Trump's election, I think you're going to see a very, very active cohort of young Americans getting involved in politics that perhaps would never have been involved before. And I think it's good, frankly. I mean, these kids, I have a 15-year-old boy, and I asked him on the way to school, I said, do you think about this a lot? And he said, well, yeah, of course, Dad. Whenever this happens, we think about it. That's no way for our kids to grow up. We have to do better.
President Trump, as of at least Tuesday, was talking about the possibility of sending the U.S. military to the southern border to secure the border. Now, of course, we had Jeff Flake on a few weeks back, and he was saying on Capitol Hill, Republicans have a phrase, they say, well, there's Tuesday Trump, there's Thursday Trump. You never quite know what the president's going to say. But what do you think of this notion of sending the military to secure the southern border?
One wonders what exactly he's trying to secure it from, because last year more people actually left the United States for Mexico than left Mexico for the United States. A better use of our country's might and our country's power would be to partner with failing states in many cases in Central America. And El Salvador and Guatemala, 70%, I've visited these countries, met with about 20 mayors, and they said, Martin, probably 70% of our business owners pay more in extortion money to drug gangs than they do in taxes to our own country. It's the lawlessness that caused the refugee spike that we saw a couple of years ago, and mostly young people. We don't really have people pouring over the borders in Mexico, so I'm not really sure what he's looking to do, except probably to distract and create scapegoats and false enemies.
You're focused on 2018, and you're going to stay focused on 2018 until November. What happens when we turn the page on that month and we're looking towards potentially 2020? Do you see yourself running for president? Yeah,
I'm keeping an open heart and an open mind to running again, Adam. Right now, I'm putting my shoulder into helping others. I've repurposed our leadership pack, and we call it Win Back Your State, because I believe that the only way to save the United States is for us to win back our states. We need to save our democracy. I mean, what we've done in terms of partisan redistricting, gerrymandering, the influence of big money in campaigns. I mean, it's no wonder a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't matter. We need to restore that, but we also need to make better decisions so our kids can be winners in this changing economy. So, look, man, in the fullness of time, I'll make a decision about whether I run again or not. Having done it once, I think I have a better understanding of what it takes than most people. But I think you're going to see the party fielding a pretty large field. And I think the public is looking for a new leader who can bring us together and have us face a fast-changing economic future and make it better for our kids.
All right, Governor Martin O'Malley, former Governor of Maryland, we appreciate your time. We'll see you back here.
Thank you, Adam. You will.
All right, thanks so much.